Thank you very much. So we have today Anna Maria Baciu with us from Romania, on my right. Maria has been in gaming law practice for many years. And is it a year ago that you started your own firm? Yeah, almost 1 year ago you started your own firm together with a colleague, and this has proven to be very successful, I can see, and you have grown. And then to my left side we have Tatiana Davydova, who is with Parimatch, and Tatiana has a long experience and expertise in HR issues. She has been in different HR positions, and a rocket scientist, is that right?
I am.
Originally, right?
Originally, yeah, with my education, master's degree in rocket science, actually.
Wonderful, wonderful. So whereas we often use this phrase, it's not rocket science.
Yeah, then I've got a clue, yeah.
So wonderful, we're looking at diversity issue today, and I should say from the outset that we have intended in when we were pre-discussing this panel, by no means to limit this to gender question, but really to understand diversity much broader, which it truly is, right? So maybe on the starting point, the diversity issue can probably be discussed from two pretty different angles. One angle is when we see situations that let's call them non-diverse, we could look at it as something unfair or going against fundamental rights, such concepts. But another angle would be to simply underline the business relevance. And that's probably the angle we are taking today. So the broader question would be, does it matter at all in practice? And if it matters, why does it matter? And do we see different outcomes from diverse to non-diverse teams? So I hope this lays the floor, and let me then start with our first issue, which is when we look at what you have seen in practice, do you think, and I have to ask this provocative question, do you think diversity matters at all, or are the outcomes just the same?
This is rocket science. So, yeah, diversity matters, but it matters, first of all, it matters because the way we think of it. It was just a coincidence that yesterday I have seen a study from the European Commission that was about the pay gap, gender pay gap. This is the title. And it was treating every single country in the EU, plus Switzerland, Norway, EA entirely. And what I have seen, and it's not a surprise for me, but it was the first time I think I've seen it, put it in writing. Romania has the lowest gender pay gap in Europe. We are around 3.5% at the gap pay per hour, whereas the European Union has a 16% average. And in Czech Republic, I've seen there was one of the highest rates. It was about 20%. So coming from a country where this is the situation, now it is official. It's something that is not only that I have felt it like this, but it's official. It's the differences between men and women are not as important. Coming from an European country which was previously for a long time under a communist regime, I think we were lucky enough, we women in Romania and maybe Eastern Europe also, other Eastern European countries, we were lucky enough to be considered equal to men. As such, I don't think that in my country, in this part of the world, is as much as an issue as in other countries. And maybe this is something that we need to put into perspective. It is an issue, but it's not an all-around issue. It's not the same everywhere, and as it's not the same everywhere, it's probably not the same around every industry, and around every territory, and around every role in the company. So it matters, but it matters, as I said, from where you look at it.
So if I may pick this up, and noting the very small or almost inexisting payment difference in that example of Romania, would you say that some of the discussion that we hear about diversity issues is maybe a bit through a Western European lens?
Western European, US driven, probably more, and I'm not here to say that it doesn't exist, that's for sure. It does exist, but it's not everywhere the same. That's for sure.
Okay, so an invitation to be precise and always look closely at every country or region where we are. Tatiana, do you think, does it really matter, diverse teams, and if it does, why does it matter?
Well, depends again on the angle how we look at it. And for me, being an HR person, I always think, and specifically the diversity issue for me is kind of a chicken and egg issue. You know, why do we have, for example, a gender pay gap? Just from my perspective, from things that I do see normally in my work, ladies are usually asking for less money. So the question here, why? Because they are less aggressive, they probably do not believe in themselves, and there is problems with the self-esteem probably, and that's all kind of guesses right now from my side. Because again, it is easy to blame now the employer who is kind of treating them differently, but it's not always the case. Because normally, and what we see in the modern world, and for example in CIS market, which I'm primarily dealing with right now, when you are discussing your salary, it's more like a discussion, what do you want? So now when we see a pay gap, then the question here is, then probably ladies ask for less money. And that's maybe not the question to the employer who should force them to ask for more, right? And moreover, we are now just touching a very small topic of a gender diversity issue, but the issue is much wider when I look at it, and I think gender issue will be solved with the time. Let's look at how the workplace is developing in the past 50, 60 years. Let's look 50 years, behind. And I would say at that times, the expectations from the job was like, okay, it's great if I have a job, and it's great if you pay me salary for my job. That's enough, right? And now we do expect much more from the workplace. We expect to be engaged. We expect to have a development. We expect much more from the employer. And it's not a long period of time from, having a job and have a pay. It's just literally 50 to 60 years when I do expect much more from the job, but employers had really lack of the time to adapt to that. And I think the gender issue will be solved just simply with time. It's just for the ladies themselves to realize that they can do careers, that they can have them, and they can, just develop as they wish to. I'm here with my colleague, she's head of legal, I'm head of HR, and that says a lot. And we are both from the countries where, if we would look in every kind of research, the gender diversity issue is the highest. But I don't feel it myself. I had all the opportunities to grow. I had all the opportunities to become a rocket science, and there were no issue for me in that. And there were guys who were much smarter than I am, and there were ladies who were much smarter than I am. And it's fine. We are different, and we can do different stuff. There are different aspects of the diversity that I see, but again, the question mark here, why do they exist? It's just, there are problems with the age, right? I would say in the modern world, we do expect much younger people to be on the work, and again, the question why? And here again, when I look at it, I think, okay, the older people can probably harder adapt to the fast changing environment. There are more technologies on the workplace, and it's harder for them to get quicker into everything that is changing and all this kind of stuff. So maybe that's an evil employers who are trying to not to help. Again, we probably should help people to adapt better.
Is this a difficulty in your HR practice to find good people, what should you say, above 50, 55?
For my area, it is a problem because we are, as an IT company, it is problematic to find a good programmer, speaking English, knowing all the modern techniques, able to adapt fast. It is problematic because again, the industry itself doesn't exist for 100, 200 years, right? It's just a pretty much young industry by itself. There are not so many specialists of this age on the market at the end.
And then there may be other factors as well. Pre-discussion, we mentioned that in some countries, including my own Switzerland, you have legislation that makes it more expensive for an employer to have an employee who is above a certain age. So
it doesn't help much, right?
The older the employee, the more you have to pay into the pension fund in terms of the percentage of the salary. So you have a net salary of, let's assume this is 100%, and then the older the employee is, the more you have to pay into the pension fund. So you can imagine what the reaction is. It's about economics.
Good incentive.
Yeah, it's a pretty good incentive, right, to employ elder people. So picking this up again, the age. Do you see that this is an issue in our industry, in the gambling in the gambling industry? Do we have enough? I can't say elder people. It's not really old to be 50.
No, it's not really old, and I think I'm not very young myself. Now I'm not 20, and I see people my age around me all the time. All these types of events, I'm seeing people my age or even a bit older. I don't think it's an issue for the industry, although the industry is not really an old industry, as Tatiana was pointing out. But I think it's different for us because it's not the technical developments that are somehow preventing us from being able to provide our services even at a, let's say, more mature age. So it may be an issue for, I think, for probably lower areas in the industry, but I think that the more senior the job gets, the easier it is to still be able to be there at an age that is, for other industries, quite high, let's say.
Because different skills matters.
Yes.
At a certain point, different skills, and managerial skills which exist for ages.
Yeah, I was listening to you and I think about the women, sorry to jump in, and I think basically I was wondering for quite a while why this type of panels keep coming up in this type of events, and I think now I have the answer, because in the end, it's, as you said, it's about the education of women to ask for more, and probably in fact that's what all these type of panels are aiming at. And not only women, but also now that we are talking about diversity in gender and age and race and whatever. Maybe that's, in fact, that's the idea, to get a view of how others are doing it and to do it better. Maybe even the state will do it better.
And to show the ability that there are jobs exists, and we are, as an employer, we are lacking a good employees all the time. Why would I limit myself to a certain gender, a certain age? I'm fighting for the talent every single day. And maybe that's a huge challenge for the employer right now, to how do I get them into the job, up to speed, giving, started to giving value to the employer, because we are lacking a good talent. Every day, each of us is fighting.
So we probably agree that maybe with the exception of the law practices, the gambling industry is probably not the most diverse industry when it comes to age, right? I mean, people tend to be rather young. If we then move on to further criteria such as nationality, languages, I think the situation looks different. When we look at companies, especially in places like Malta, we often see very diverse teams from various countries speaking various languages originally. Again, the question, is this a good thing? Does it matter? Do you think, could a company afford to have mainly one language culture and say 1 or 2 countries represented?
I think it becomes more and more difficult when you are a company that is trying to get international. Then you need international skilled people. I've seen it with the clients that I work with when they are looking for people for the international team, and they need, so in addition to whatever basic skills you need to have, you need to know the law and everything, and then you need to know the culture in other countries, you need to know the language in other countries, and it's more and more difficult to find people who are fitting for this type of jobs. Probably there are jobs that can be done less diverse, let's say. But there are definitely more and more jobs for which you need to be diverse from every perspective, not only age, gender.
Okay, let's stay with this. What would you say are the kind of jobs where you would argue here you definitely want to be in a diverse situation in terms of having people from different countries and cultural backgrounds?
I've seen it in legal, I've seen it in compliance also. And I think it's important, and this is what I come across. I'm pretty sure that there are other jobs. The product development, I believe, has to have diverse people. Because if you are addressing a territory in Eastern Europe, there's something that you need to know about them, different from Switzerland. So it may be that it's not the same game, that it's common and likable, let's say, in Eastern Europe as towards Western Europe.
Do you agree on that?
I do, because, and again, in the HR, we need to have a diverse team to be able to understand our population, right? If I have a diverse company, then I have to have different people, different opinions. Product, I think it matters. But I've also got a case just recently. I've been consulting one of the companies, and they were looking to grow. And the worry of the head of technology was, okay, if we're going to become an international company, then we will need to start first speaking English, probably, or whatever the language will be chosen, and then this will change our culture dramatically. That was a drama for him. He was kind of, this will ruin all the culture that we have internally. And I said, okay, yes, but this will also bring something new to your culture. And you have to be open if you would like to grow, if you would like to expand, then this is the future you will need to look at, and not to be afraid of, and you better be prepared to that, because otherwise you will not, you are limiting yourself to a very small market of talent. Open up for wider opportunities, that helps.
And I would also agree with what you just said. I think it matters a lot, especially in relation to product development. The more you go global, the more you go international, you want to make sure that you get your product at least double checked before you launch it in a market. Probably the same goes for advertisement. Marketing. So marketing in Switzerland doesn't have to be the same as in India, let's say. Just to make this a bit more concrete, I think when I see gambling adverts in Switzerland, they're rather, how should I put this now, by international standards they would tend to be, let's say, a bit more boring, maybe, a bit more conservative, not as outgoing and flashy and flamboyant as maybe would be adequate somewhere else.
Yeah, probably from a cultural perspective, as you said, because something that is perfectly acceptable in Europe, it will probably not be in Asia. So, and the other way around, probably less. But anyway.
But we don't have to even compare ourselves to Asia. In Ukraine, it is very common that we headhunt people, we contact them directly, etc. And when I've been talking to my subordinate in Sweden, she said, "Should I contact the employee, the candidate, and just invite him for the job?" No, we cannot do that. On a cultural level, we're going to look like a company who are trying to hunt an employee, and it's going to ruin our reputation. Not acceptable. I will post a job posting and will wait for the candidates who are interested. I said, what? You will never ever get the candidates, especially the ones that you want. I said, but we cannot afford it. And that's a cultural difference. In Ukraine, that's common. If I'm going to be waiting for the candidate to apply for my position, it will never ever happen. We will never hire anyone. And that's the difference.
So we see definitely different practices. Maybe another aspect, risk and risk taking. From your experience, is it a good thing or is it a bad and dangerous thing, risk taking? What are you looking for in your HR practice?
Well, again, like every philosophical question, it depends. It depends on the situation. Okay, let's say I'm going to be dealing with some very complicated termination, and then as a crazy person I'll say, okay, I'm not going to hire lawyers, I'll take a risk and I'll do it myself. Excellent decision. I would say, no, it doesn't work like that, so it depends. When we're talking about, again, maybe the things like decision about going to the new market, taking risk to drive the business forward, then you cannot achieve any results if you're not taking the risk. But there are options where you cannot take the risk. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You'd better, specifically probably in HR area, you have to be very cautious of what you do and what you say, because this can influence your people in a way then this will explode immediately. I mean, a wrongly said word can ruin, can stop the workday of the company, because you've said, okay guys, it looks like coronavirus is coming. Then everyone's, oh my goodness, should we go and work from home? So all the drama can happen if I say something in the wrong way. I'm facing myself a situation, Tatiana, there is something wrong with the company? I said, why? Because you're not smiling today. Well, okay, because I'm not in a good mood today, but there is nothing wrong with the company. I mean, people can make all kinds of judgments, and then, you know, this is not the area where I can take much of the risk.
So risk-taking can definitely also have positive expressions,
of
right?
Course, yeah.
For instance, I would argue product development, if you're very conservative, do not take any risks.
No way to develop.
Exactly, you might have the Nokia experience, where you are the world leader and suddenly hardly any, and then suddenly definitely no longer. So risk-taking in terms of product development certainly might be a very good thing. When we look at the financial industry, we see both, where the risk-taking pays out. It can pay out pretty high, but if it doesn't pay out, then
the damage is much higher.
It can go really, really wrong. You know?
Yeah, and then there is a problem.
Yeah.
It depends on an industry. It depends on the level of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same for us, it's the same for legal, it's the same for compliance. You take risks, but then it may be very difficult to solve the problem that you have created by taking the risk.
Have we built as lawyers a reputation of being the most risk-taking people?
Probably.
Have we?
I think we have some of us.
Well, as entrepreneurs,
Yes,
we have.
at least,
As
yeah, from the
entrepreneurs,
business perspective.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's not about necessarily the risk taking, but measuring the risk and understanding whether there is a risk or not,
Mm-hmm.
and if there is a risk, how high it is, and what are the consequences, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
What are the consequences if I take the risk and I shouldn't have?
Let me just revisit the aspect that, for instance, the gender aspect may really vary from one region to another and from one country to another. I've been struck ever since Central Eastern Europe joined the European Union by the appointments I've seen. So I can pick as an example the European Court of Justice, where we have seen many appointments of female judges from Central Eastern Europe. And when you look at the Western European countries, there's a big difference. So we see usually elderly, grey male judges. Why is that? Why such a difference in the legal field?
I think because as I said, from some years ago, like 50, 70 years ago, the authorities in these countries have tried to make people equal. Everybody was equal. Of course, there were some people that were more equal than the others, but the rest of them...
It's nicely illustrated in Animal Farm.
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, everybody was equal. And as Tatiana said, we had equal opportunities, we had equal studies, and then it was only up to who wanted to do the job, who wanted more to be there. And indeed, in the legal industry, at least in Romania, we have a lot of judges, a lot, that are women, a lot of lawyers, a lot of prosecutors even. So yeah, this is something that we have never lacked. And also at the authorities level, you will see a balance that still exists. So probably that's why.
Let me ask you, in your own firm, do you have a diversity issue? Do you employ men? I see many women on your website.
We do have diversity issues because we are like 10 now, out of which we are 7 women and 3 men. But I have to say it's difficult to get men as lawyers in Romania, and I come from a firm who was, I think, 80% women. And I think this is something usual in Romania, quite usual. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is what it is. And it's reflected in the entire justice system in Romania.
Okay, yeah, that's, I would argue definitely.
You want to move in?
Depends on the offer, yeah.
Always does.
Glad to talk about it afterwards. So I would argue that's a situation that is definitely quite different to at least many Western European larger law firms that still tend to be quite man-dominated.
I think this is how it looks, at least from the outside.
Yeah. I've also been struck recently. In my second life, I also work at university and teach there and do research. And I've been struck recently when I looked at the HR list of employees of the university. I believe it was around 15 people, and 3 of them were men. How do you interpret that? These were all HR people of different age. So age, very diverse.
Okay,
Yeah.
at least this part is good. Well, I think some professions are, let's say, they drive you to take, HR is in general, there are different type of roles and all the stories behind, but this is mostly about taking care of others, right? And taking care of others are in the soul of every woman by itself, by the origin, by how it has grown. We are who we are, right? It's like when we speak about the love, we speak mother's love, right? The father's love is different. It's all about fun, it's all about the energy, but the mother's love is different. And that's why, again, everyone is asking, Tatiana, how many kids do you have? I said, well, right now I have something around 2,000. I've used to have much more, but that's what I have right now, because I do feel responsibility for all of them, and I do want to treat them fairly, and that's how we feel. And maybe that drives women more into this profession, because it just, by origin, it's more like for women. I don't want to be like saying ugly stuff right now, but it is like that. It is, if there is going to be some job that requires more physical power, then I would expect more men in these roles, right? Because for women it is doable, but it might be more complicated.
And staying with that example, physically hard work, I mean, that was the other side of the coin in the former Eastern Bloc, right? That women also were actually expected to do pretty rough and tough work in the
men
fields.
were doing, yeah.
So equality also included that part to that extent, right?
It comes with pluses
comes.
and minuses. It is what it is. But indeed, coming to what Tatiana said, I think I've only seen men in HR when it comes to recruitment.
Because
And
recruitment is like...
exactly. It's a something different type of HR, but now looking back at what I know, from at least from Romania, I don't know any men in HR. Not even one.
Well, I do met different
because
men
you are there.
in different countries. I got many guys in my team, but again, the number of men in HR team is the lowest in the company. The diversity in my own team is just out of discussion. I'm not even gonna be discussing that the issue exists, but it's not because we are not taking guys on the position, it's not because we are rejecting them. We are happily taking them when there is one or two. But it's just it's not for them. They don't want it. They don't like it so much. They like different stuff. They like to make business. They would like to take more risk. They want something more dynamic or whatsoever.
So, of course, you can only employ people who actually apply to you. Right? That is essentially.
I cannot just grab someone on the street. Okay, you're gonna be HR from now on.
Let me.
You could, but it probably won't work.
Let me touch on a point that has in recent couple of years, including at ICE in London, caused certain waves, and I'm referring to, let's say, customs in the gambling industry of having rather young and pretty-looking girls walking around on the floor. Anna-Maria, could you comment on this? Is this, and of course the industry got heavily bashed, including by the UK regulator. In your view, is this bashing justified, or may this also be to some extent one-sided?
I think it exists, the issue is there, but as always the balance would be nice. And when we are talking about ICE, it would be nice whether we are looking at these ladies as well as the other ladies, the ones that are walking around in streets, talking business with their men peers, and not only this part of the job.
And you argue they do exist, and they do exist in large quantities.
In sufficient quantity, I would say. I don't know whether it's large or not, and maybe it would be nice to have a statistic from the organizers to see how many attendees are men and women. This would be nice, because indeed the Gambling Commission is always only referring to this part of the show that they don't like, and they would like to disappear probably, but not the other one.
And all the, are you saying that all the women in, for instance, C-level positions that do exist, especially as you argued in Central Eastern Europe, they are seen much less, let's say, by the Western authorities or the Western media than the women walking the floor?
No, I think they just don't want to be, they don't want to enter into this discussion. They are this, but also this, because then they lose the advantage of saying this is bad. Because if you put it into perspective, then it may not be only this part of the women around the show, but also the other ones. Maybe they lose a little bit of the arguments on the side that they want to make, the show, dancing, music, costumes, everything.
Yeah, that's maybe also an aspect not to be forgotten. What industry is this again?
Entertainment.
Entertainment, okay. So it's sometimes maybe in this field a bit more of a challenge to find the appropriate and right balance than in let's say, less vibrant and less outgoing area of practice or area of work.
Yeah, I think maybe we are more involved into this industry, but I don't see the same concern about more women dancing in various shows as we have in this industry. So basically, although it is an entertainment industry, we would like it to be only business, which is not, because it cannot be. If it's only business, then we have no business.
It's true. Tatiana.
Well, ladies looks nice. They can dance. Everyone likes to look at them. Why not? I mean, they have agreed for that. No one forced them to do that,
We
right?
hope so.
Yeah.
We know, because this is all happening in the UK, don't forget it. The laws are pretty much strict there. And again, would the society be satisfied seeing men dancing? Fine.
Yeah, I was
Then
looking
use
at
the
one of the
advantage.
brochures
That's
there,
an
and I
idea
was-
for you. That's
I
an
felt-
idea.
I felt discriminated when I looked into the brochures. I haven't seen any men.
I'm tempted to say it depends, right?
Oh, well, again, but this may be used as an opportunity. Why not?
To be honest, I would be extremely curious what would happen if it's not that women would disappear, but men would also appear. There were some men, if you remember, at the far end of the show where they were fighting something. But what if we have equal gender
It's
dancers?
not bad.
How would it be? Would it still be bad because
What
of
would
the
the
diversity?
perception be? But
Exactly. Would gambling
authorities.
commission still be upset because we have women dancing, or would they become upset that we have both men and women dancing?
We don't know what's in the heads of gambling commission.
I think
Nobody knows.
it's an interesting intellectual exercise that I invite everybody to do, and again invite everybody to think diversity far beyond gender, and also include age and language and geographic diversity, as we have tried to do so today as well. And I hope this will not be the last session on this issue. I understand from Sultan we will have a couple of more opportunities to discuss these matters in more detail. Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you.
much.